Well, Zoe Daniel is one of those independents fighting for the seat of Goldstein, which has been held by the Libs since it was created in 1984 and is currently held by Junior Minister Tim Wilson on a margin of 7.8%. And she joins us now. Zoe, it is the question that everyone is asking right now. If you do get elected and it is a hung parliament, who will you side with, Scott Morrison or Anthony Albanese?
Well, Lisa, I haven't decided because I don't know what they might be putting on the table, and the Australian people haven't even had a chance to vote yet. Everyone knows what my positions are. My main priorities are climate, for a prosperous future for our country, integrity and equality, and those things are very self-evident. The voters will know that, and so will the leaders of the two major parties. So if it comes to that sort of negotiation, then we have a conversation about that at the time.
Well, an overwhelming majority of your supporters, in fact 76%, don't want you to side with Scott Morrison. If there were enough Teal independents in Parliament, would you consider working with the LNP if they were to choose a different leader other than Scott Morrison?
Who the leader is quite meaningless to me as someone who's worked extensively in the United States and seen the perils of a presidential system.
Zoe, it sounds like it really matters to your supporters.
We have a Westminster system. Well, that's based on one poll, and as you know, polling of individual seats, Lisa, is quite unreliable. Let's see how the voters vote on the day, and then we go from there.
Zoe, when you say that if it comes to a hung parliament, you'll just deal with the policies, and your policies are out there. So too the Labor Party's policies as well as the coalition policies. I think any fair reading of all of those different sets of policies would say that yours are more closely aligned with what Labor is offering. So is it honest to say that you just deal with both equally and you haven't really made up your mind which party you would back if it were a hung parliament?
Well, I think that people in my electorate would expect me to have those rigorous conversations on the day. And on some policies, I might be more aligned with Labor. On other policies, I might be more aligned with the Liberal Party. I'm a social progressive and an economic conservative.
But of those you listed, whether it's climate or integrity or gender, it's pretty clear that the Labor Party policies are closer to yours than what the coalitions are.
Well, I think the question with the Labor Party is, can they actually deliver it? They've played a small target strategy for a long time and not been particularly brave. There are trust issues on the Liberal side, but also, as you know, politicians say all sorts of things, particularly leaders of parties say all sorts of things during election campaigns, and then those things can change if it actually comes to whether they can form government or not. So I look forward to having those conversations at the time. I hope it doesn't come to that, though. You know, I think the Australian people have an opportunity to go to the polls and cast their democratic votes. I'm not necessarily looking forward to the person who has to make that, being the person who has to make that decision if I have to. But people can be assured that I would make it rigorously and carefully, and I'd be having a good faith conversation with both sides if that's needed.
Zoe, how many conversations have you had with your other fellow Teal independents like Zali Steggall and Monique Ryan and Allegra Spender about what you'll do if you do have the balance of power?
No conversations at all. So there's been a little bit of background conversation.
Not even a WhatsApp,
no.
Nothing?
The only conversations that I've had with the other independents have been along the lines of, are you okay, amid quite a challenging campaign. I haven't had any policy conversations with any of them.
Zoe, when you do text each other asking if you're okay, what are you referring to?
Look, it's been a pretty bruising campaign in some ways, Lisa. My signs have been vandalised and ripped off fences. There's been a dirt unit in the background digging whatever they can find on me and my campaign staff. I was screamed at in the street today by someone who accused me of being a Labor stooge, and other candidates have had their own experiences. It's not particularly pleasant. And, you know, I'm not a politician. This is not something that I'm used to. As a journalist suggested to me last week, oh, you should expect that. Well, I don't think you should, actually. I think we should be having a contest of ideas. I don't think it should be personality politics. So, yeah, it can be a little bit challenging.
Zoe, you can't help but see that all Teal independents are women. Is female representation going to make a difference to you with which party that you support?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, as you know, the Labor Party has a quota, so has a vastly better female representation than the Liberal Party. It's not something that I've thought about in that way, but I would say to you that, you know, I stand here in the seat of Goldstein, named after Vida Goldstein, who was an internationally renowned suffragist who helped Australia get the vote. I think, though, the penny's dropped for a lot of women that the vote's not enough, that we need more women at the table. So if those women are not at the table in the major parties, they can be in the room as independents, and that's one of the reasons that I've stepped forward.
So, Danielle, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks very much for your time this evening.
Thanks for having me.